Okay, I think I am live on Facebook and I am recording, which is good. Let me just double check everything. I have a few questions that I received in my private messages. I prefer if you can post them in the group so everyone can see. It kind of inspires other people to post questions as well. You know, no one wants to be the one person who did, but if you could just post the questions in there so other people will post as well, I would appreciate that. So the first question I have for this week is, what brand of oat groats do you use? And I will show you. I purchased these. They say gluten-free prairie, gluten-free oat groats. Here's what it looks like. And I was excited about them. You can see, I don't know how well you can see them. Maybe you can see them if I hold them this way. I love these oats. They sprout really well. However, I realized on another class, I have a group class that's going on right now too, that they don't say organic anywhere on here. And so I've told most of you, you've seen me before talk. If it doesn't say organic, it has been sprayed. So I'm really sad about that. They do that because if they are not completely dry, they gunk up the machinery and they have to stop and re-clean the machinery. And so they like to spray them so they dry nice and quickly all at the same time, you know, so you don't have one row that's not completely dry because of shading or something. And so they spray them. So if they don't say organic, they are sprayed. And so I'm very disappointed. So these were probably sprayed. They might not be. I could call the company, maybe they're not, but I'm not going to use that company anymore. The one that I usually use is Live for Life, or even if you go on Amazon, you can wait. I think it's called Live for Life. So let me double check that. It is called Food to Live. Food to Live organic oat groats. So there are some that you can buy directly from the farmer, even on Amazon. And so you have to do some of your own research. But you do want the groats. And so you can see, let's see if I can hold them up. They look a lot like barley. They don't look anything like a rolled oat or anything like that that we buy. I don't know if I can hold it where you can see. I don't even know if I can see my camera. They're long and skinny. They have a little slit on them. Can you see on my other camera? And so they look a lot like a barley, where I know as a kid we would have barley cereal. It was terrible, but it's a little bit fatter than the oat groats. Anyway, oat groats would be your best choice when you're looking for oats, whereas a more processed oat would not be. So I bought, or my husband bought these for me, sprouted rolled. They do say gluten-free. They are certified organic, USDA organic. They are certified gluten-free. And I haven't opened them yet, but I want you to look at the picture. Can you see the photo? I hope so. So they are pressed and steamed. And so if you look at them versus what I have from my freezer, can you see that? The zoom, you can see a little bit better. You can see there, they have a little tail. They look kind of like the barley. I said they're long and skinny and plump, and they have a little tail. So I sprout them and then I throw them in my freezer to use during the week. But then look at these. So you can see they're rolled. So they've been steamed, which means they're no longer raw, and they have been pressed and rolled. And so while they may still have lots of nutrients in them, they have been steamed. They're not going to have any of the enzymes anymore in them. And so for me, this is a better choice. You have to chew, where these are going to kind of melt in your mouth. These, I can make my overnight oat bowl, but I'm going to need to cut the amount of liquid I put in there because they've already soaked up a lot of liquid. These are going to soak up some more. If I were making muffins or a oat pancake or waffles, I love my blender waffles, then I'm probably going to use something like this. It's going to thicken up. Now, that is not something I eat regularly. That is something that I eat occasionally. That is not a healthy choice. And so this would be an okay product where your sprouted oats are going to be your best. So then I also had a question about that and blood sugar stabilization. So this is more likely to spike your blood sugar. It's already steamed, it's processed, it's going to go into your bloodstream easier. You don't have to chew this hardly at all. It's going to kind of melt in your mouth. If it's rolled, if it's quick cooking, the more processed it is, instant oats, that you might as well be eating sugar. And so you want to be careful with that. I have a family member in the hospital right now, And that oats or those instant oat packets you add water to, I mean, they're giving them sugar, which I could get on a whole nother tangent on hospital food. I am not happy. I know that the hospitals, this one particularly, orders their food in, and so the choices are really limited. She was at another hospital and they even told her that they can't accommodate her dietary restrictions. They thought that she was being too strict. And her breakfast was a sausage biscuit. So as I said, I'm gonna get on another tangent. Horrible food. So these are nice and chewy. They're plump. They're very chewy. It's a whole grain. So whenever I'm looking at grains, if they are raw and sprouted like this, they're going to be high in fiber, high in all of your minerals. They're going to be nice and dense. You have to chew to get anything broken down to eat. Whereas if it's something, a processed grain, one that is like an instant cooking, any of that. So that could go with grits. A lot of times people will eat grits. Grits are processed. Grits don't look like corn. Grits are made from corn, but they don't look anything like corn. They are a processed food. So corn, I don't eat corn. Corn cross-contaminate, can cross-react with gluten. Your body, if you have issues with gluten, maybe celiac or non-celiac gluten sensitivity, you may react to corn the same way too. And I just happen to be one of those people. And so I cannot have corn. But if I did have corn, I used to love grits. Eating a corn kernel is completely different from eating a grit. You just think about what they look like. You have a little small ball versus a corn kernel that has the little white, the germ in there, and all the fiber, has some water and minerals. So you can see that that is processed. So when we look at grains, that corn is not going to spike. It's going to spike blood sugar, but eating that is not going to be anything like eating a popcorn that's all puffed up. That is going to be like sugar. Instant grits, you might as well be eating sugar. Rice. So rice is another grain that a lot of people eat. Rice is usually steamed that we buy in the store. So unless it says raw, has probably been steamed and dried. And so some recipes will call for blooming rice, and you can do that with some rices where you kind of sprout it puffs up. A lot of people who eat a raw diet, they bloom their rice, but you have to be careful about which ones you buy because they might not sprout. They've already been steamed. And the more processed it is, the more it's going to spike your blood sugar. You can get some whole grain ones that will be a little bit better. And then I think that you asked about beans as well. So what brand of oats are they called? Groats. Yes, groats, oat groats. Buckwheat groats. I buy buckwheat groats as well, and you can sprout them. I can make a fabulous fermented bread from oat groats. I just love it. But you just want to test if you are sensitive to certain foods that you want to test to make sure you don't have a sensitivity. Quinoa, oats, and buckwheat are the ones that I eat. I do make sure my oats are certified gluten-free. Oats are usually contaminated with gluten unless they're certified gluten-free because they are harvested on the same machinery. Bleh. They are harvested with the same machinery. They are carried on the same conveyor belts. They're carried in the same trucks as other grains. And so they are not naturally containing gluten, but they're going to have gluten because they've been used, the same equipment has been used to harvest them. And so if they're not certified gluten-free and you need to watch gluten, then that's something you want to look for. What else was I going to say? So buckwheat and quinoa are called pseudo grains. They're not a perfect grain like some of your other grains. So people who struggle with grains can sometimes handle buckwheat and quinoa and millet. I'm not one of those, but I do eat quinoa and I do eat buckwheat, and I do like to sprout them before I cook them. And then I've noticed you do beans and grains. Often does it make a difference if they're sprouted? Well, it depends if you're cooking them or if you're eating them raw. A lot of times I eat mine raw, like my oat groats are raw. I eat sprouted mung beans raw. I make some seed breads and crackers and things with sprouted buckwheat. And so it just depends. When you sprout them and eat them raw, they're live. They still have lots of enzymes in there and very high in minerals, where when you cook them, you destroy some of those minerals. And so as far as health goes, eating them raw and sprouted, but it depends. You cannot eat all beans raw. Some beans do have to be cooked. And I can't remember offhand, but I'm pretty sure kidney beans, red kidney beans are one of them that you must cook. And so be careful with the beans if you sprout beans. Make sure you do your own research and study that. And then I was going to talk a little bit like how long you need to sprout some of these things. And I have a nice chart, but it's not mine. And so I'm going to be careful about what I share with that. But I do sprout nuts and seeds and grains and beans. And so like chickpeas, I sprout them overnight, and then I leave them, or soak them overnight, and then I leave them to sprout for a day. Lentils I can usually do in one day. I soak them for about 4 to 6 hours and rinse, and they will already start to get a little tail. The red ones will not. They will split open, but they will not. I mean, they don't even need to be soaked before you eat them, but I do. Rice, I usually do soak for 8 hours or at least overnight, even the ones that are steamed, just to help to reduce arsenic, which I've talked about on other videos. I sprout mung beans and broccoli seeds, sometimes radish seeds, kohlrabi seeds. I soak them overnight, and then I put them in sprouting jars and rinse and drain and leave them inverted. I have another video on that, so you can watch that. My oats I'd soak overnight, and then I leave in a big strainer over a bowl, usually for about a day. And I really don't know how well you can see these, but they do have a little bit of a tail. And then I put them in the freezer. You can see they're frozen kind of in a clump here. I did try drying them and then using them, but they get hard as a rock. So for me, it's much better to just sprout, throw them in the freezer, and then I have them for my oat bowls in the morning. Buckwheat, I only soak for about 15 minutes. It's very mucilaginous. It gets really slimy. And so I love sprouting buckwheat for breads and crackers and things like that. And then I leave it to soak for a day or two. If you eat too many buckwheat sprouts, you can get some numbness in your fingers. You stop eating the sprouts, it goes away. And so that's not something you want to overdose on. Whereas like broccoli sprouts are amazing. If you don't like broccoli, I still encourage you to try to sprout broccoli, because each one of those tiny little sprouts, that's all the same nutrition that's in a big broccoli floret. And so even if you just put, like a teaspoon, how many broccoli heads are you eating there? All that nutrition is just fabulous for your entire body. And so if you can do that, I strongly encourage you to do that. Quinoa, I soak that up for about 4 hours, and then I just leave it to sprout for about a day. And then like most of my nuts and seeds, I will soak just for a few hours, not overnight. Anyway, if you have any other questions about sprouting, about oat groats, comment below this video and let me know. And for next week's video, depending on which service you're watching on, let me know what else you want to hear about. What do you want me to talk about? Are you going to be able to join me live? I'm here. I want to help answer whatever questions that you may have. Anyway, thank you for joining me and for listening to me today, and I hope to hear from you soon.